segment of the day, we are here with Dr. Julie, our resident doctor, here to learn a few things from you.
I'm glad to be here. Glad
Thank
to be
you.
back, as always.
Oh my goodness, it's always so much fun. I always feel so empowered. So today we were talking about getting pregnant and creating a fertile environment, right? So say you want to get pregnant, what can we do health-wise, food-wise, in order to really get our bodies ready for getting pregnant?
Yeah, for those of us who are really trying to enter into motherhood, or we're trying to get pregnant, or even early on when you're pregnant, there's certain foods that you want to avoid and certain foods that you want to be eating. But first I'm going to start off with talking about the lifestyle, because a lot of times the stress levels that we have in our life, whether we're over-exercising, also the activity level, and whether we're sleeping enough or not, that definitely can impact what we call the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis.
HPA axis.
And what's important about that axis is really that it contributes and affects a lot of our hormonal system. And so it controls a lot of our hormonal system. And so stress, things like excessive exercise, lack of sleep, even some of the supplements we're taking, like melatonin, may affect some of the hormones that are being released and chemicals being released. So those things are important to keep in mind. So I always have the patients who come to see me where they're looking to get pregnant, we talk about mind-body therapies to help them deal with stress, any interpersonal relationship issues or worries or concerns or anxieties about having the child is important to get addressed as well. Getting the sleep, and making sure you should get mild to moderate exercise, of course, because overweight or underweight also can affect fertility.
Overweight or underweight.
Right, because again, that affects the HPA axis. So we really want to be about that just right range, and getting the right exercise to achieve that without being too much is important.
And then there's basic things, right? Like, smoking, drinking alcohol.
Right. And too much caffeine is also a problem. A lot of people will say a little caffeine's okay. It is if you keep under about 200 milligrams, but for someone...
Is that a cup of coffee, or...?
So if you have about a cup of coffee, you have somewhere about 100, 135 milligrams of caffeine, and so tea is actually a lot less. So teas, green teas, for example, have about 25, 35 milligrams, so it's a lot less. But I really do recommend for someone who's having a really hard time getting pregnant to even stay away from caffeine altogether. Because you want an optimal environment to try to get pregnant.
Okay, and then what about once you're pregnant, right? What are some things that you shouldn't be eating?
So once you're pregnant,
or you should stay away from?
Yeah. So there's 3 big categories that I usually recommend for those of us who are pregnant already. And the first 2 we already mentioned, which is alcohol and caffeine, because that leads to low birth weight and miscarriages, and also fetal alcohol syndrome, of course, with alcohol. The second category is really staying away from foods that potentially can cause infections. So with like E. coli, salmonella, campylobacters, Vibrio cholera, and that falls into several categories, such as, for example, soft cheeses can have that effect of, you're worried about listeria infections. That's something that is important.
So that's very real, huh? I gave that up when I was pregnant. That was the hardest thing to give up.
And of course, that's the alcohol that we want to stay away from, and the coffee. But the soft cheeses is more the infection. Also, things like sprouts, raw sprouts, you want to make sure that you cook them because of the potential for like E. coli and salmonella and things like that. And so, what we want to also stay away from are like deli meats. We want to stay away from unpasteurized milk, ciders, juices. Because again, it's that infection risk. And also you're looking at like raw meats, shellfish, seafood, raw
I gave
eggs,
up sushi. That was hard. Oh, I couldn't believe it. Like, no. I mean, it's hard enough, but like to give up sushi?
Yeah.
But then with the deli meat though, what does that mean exactly? Can you make a turkey and carve it out and create a sandwich? Yes.
So you can heat it. You would heat it till it's steaming to kill the bacteria in there.
Okay. But if it's previously cooked from the night before...
Well, here's the thing is, that's not deli meat because it's just fresh turkey that you made. Right. So you would just reheat it until it's steaming and well cooked. But we're really talking about like deli meats, and also actually pre-made salads that you find in grocery stores or delis. You should stay away from that because again, listeria type infections is what we're worried about. So really just making sure you're getting rid of all the pathogens that potentially can cause infection is important. You also want to stay away from foods that are too high in vitamin A, so don't eat over about 8,000 to 10,000 international units of vitamin A. Again, we're talking about birth defects, so you want to get the vitamins, but not too much of a good thing. And the last category, really, we're looking at things like toxins. So a lot of people who love seafood and sushi, it's important to stay away from predatory fishes because they consume the smaller fishes, so they have higher levels of mercury.
Oh.
So like the sharks, the king mackerels, tilefish, swordfish, those things you should stay away from while you're pregnant. And then again, looking at eating more organic because again, the pesticides, the additives, preservatives, food colorings, you never quite know what you're going to get from that. There's no significant, definitive studies showing one way or another, but I always say if you're really wanting to be cautious and there's issues of allergies in the family, etc., staying away from those won't hurt.
All right, there you have it. You got to give up a little cheese and a little sushi, but then you have a beautiful baby.
It's worth it.
And if you want to get pregnant, those of us who've already been down that road, we may not be quite as stringent, but it's worth it. It's worth making the sacrifices.
Yeah, when you have that little baby in your arms, I think you'll think it's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, all you had to do was give up some cheese. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. And as usual, you guys can head over to the website at dayswiththeraw.com. And there'll be more information. You can get in contact with Dr. Julie so she can answer some of your questions. And we'll be right back.